G'day everybody, welcome back to another video on the channel. So we're nearing the halfway point of the 2022 AFL season, and we've heard plenty of attention in the media of possible trades and possible free agents that could be swooped up by different clubs at the end of the season. In this video today, I've compiled a few plays, also including a few trade ideas that could maybe happen in my mind, as we'll be discussing today potential trades that could occur at the end of the AFL season for 2022. If you're going to enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. That'd be much appreciated. And let's get into the video. So kicking off with the first potential trade that could happen is Rory Lobb. We obviously heard in the news last year that he was wanting a move back to GWS, but the deal did not fall through and he stayed as a Docker for 2022. He's had a, somewhat decent season so far for Freo, but of course it'd probably still be on his mind of, would he be moving back to the Giants potentially? Or there's a few really good Victorian clubs who'd be interested, such as I think the Western Bulldogs, Luke Beveridge side. They do really lack another key forward to really excel. They've got Josh Bruce coming back in, but he's aging, and someone like a Roy Lobb that could really pay dividends to an inconsistent forward line of the Bulldogs could really boost them and play more consistent footy. If it's not the Bulldogs, there are for sure a few Victorian clubs that would be possibly interested. Teams that are hungry for another key forward, such as Richmond, North Melbourne, Collingwood or Essendon, they are also potential teams too. Next potential trade, and we have got Karl Amon from Port Adelaide. He is of course a best and fairest winner for Port, and of course last year he was a 40-man All-Australian shortlist selection, so he does have a pretty tasty resume for potential clubs to be picking him up. He hasn't really had the greatest season over there at Albertron, so yeah, many of course Victorian clubs could be interested. Reports say that Carlton do have plenty of money to spend and they could really boost their wing stocks and just add to that midfield depth of a really classy outside player. Or of course Karl Amon, he was a Saints fan and he is highly being linked to St Kilda, who again wouldn't mind some extra midfield talent. Another massive move that could potentially happen during the trade period is Angus Brayshaw. Geez, the Demons have so much talent that clubs would love to pick off them. And one of them is, of course, Angus Brayshaw, one of the out-of-contract players for Melbourne Demons for 2022. And geez, across his tenure with the Demons, he's played in so many roles and has been, I guess, elite in all of them. He's played that inside midfield, outside midfield, deep wing, halfback role, and he's a man that has plenty of strings added to his bow at the Demons, and this is where a lot of teams would be interested. Of course, he's Western Australian, and he could potentially, maybe, out of all teams, be mostly linked to Fremantle. He'd go back to Freo and join his younger brother of Andrew. And geez, what a partnership that would be for Freo. I'm pretty sure I did hear that he would not want to go to West Coast at all, which perfectly makes sense. So if it isn't Western Australia, maybe a few teams who really do want to roll the dice and improve their midfield. For example, Hawthorn's a good shout. He could potentially be ending up there. But yeah, Angus Brayshaw would most likely, if he were to leave, probably head to Freo to join his younger brother of Andrew. And now we head to possibly one of the biggest names in the list of out-of-contract plays. We have Luke Jackson from the Demons. The third pick of the 2019 draft. His past two seasons have been truly unbelievable. I'm pretty sure at the end of his first year, he did get a 2-year contract extension. And of course, what a player he's become. He has solidified a perfect ruck and forward partnership with Max Gawn, and he's one of the more unique players in the competition. He is almost 2 meters tall, and what he does around the footy field, not many tall players can do. Extremely athletic, brilliant at ground level, and can certainly find an eye for goals. So he's definitely a player that would be on a lot of clubs' list. However, who would be willing to pay the money? And I think the West Coast Eagles would be a perfect landing spot for him. Of course, Luke Jackson hasn't said anything really about if he wants to leave the club or not. Would he want to leave the Melbourne Demons whilst they're in their prime with potentially 2 premiership medallions around his neck, or will he want to stay and continue to be part of the Demons, who seriously look like they have a chance of winning the three-peat? As said just before, West Coast would be a perfect destination as they're a side who's really lacking young talent. And if a trade was to occur, there's been many people thinking of what they would trade out the Eagles. Would they give away an Oscar Allen or a pick 1? In my eyes, I think they should keep Oscar Allen and take out maybe an Elliot Yeo or a Jack Darling with a few draft picks in there as well. So Luke Jackson is a potential player that could be heading west. Now moving on to another trade that has caught plenty of attention in the media. We have Rowan Marshall potentially going to Essendon, and geez, it's a situation that would St Kilda really want to give up a Rowan Marshall, a ruckman of the future. The partnership with Paddy Ryder is of course truly great to watch. It's a magnificent partnership, probably one of the best ruck partnerships in the AFL, so it's a bit of a head scratcher for some. Why would he leave St Kilda? But if he was to leave St Kilda for Essendon, that would free up a lot of cap space, and there are plenty of players that St Kilda are being linked to and would love to pick up. So it's a bit of a one way or the other, but yeah, if Rowan Marshall would want to go, Essendon, as being mentioned by the media, would be a great destination. They are really lacking a bit of a ruck partnership at the moment. Peter Wright's a bit isolated, having to run through the ruck. Peter Wright is probably a player that wants to be more isolated, kept forward, and it'll just give a lot more support. Draper and Rowan Marshall, how about that as a partnership? So yeah, Rowan Marshall is a potential player that could be heading to the Bombers. Next player on the list today, we have Kyle Langford, a currently injured player, but he is truly a very versatile and underrated player. He has the height to play a few different roles, can play that wing, can play that outside and inside midfield spot, and it's just simply a very versatile player, and he's being linked with Hawthorn, a team that you could possibly say Hawthorn have one of the worst midfield groups in the competition. So a man like Kyle Langford gives that versatility, adds to their stock of midfields, would just be a pretty decent trade for Hawthorn, I'd feel. Of course, there'd be questions on his injury prone, but still a player that is being linked heavily, and Hawthorn would definitely consider. Dan McStay is another big name out of contract players. He's been at the Brisbane Lions his whole career, and his consistency for the Lions week in, week out has definitely built a lot of interest from many Victorian clubs. He is a Victorian, so you'd think Victoria would be the place he'd go to. Throughout his time, he's definitely been that kind of number two to Joe Danaher and Eric Hipwood, and if he would go to a Victorian club, will he build more of a reputation? He is, of course, a really underrated mark, great set shot, so a lot of Victorian clubs would be interested in him. Again, teams that are lacking of an extra key forward to potentially be an even better side, such as Richmond, North Melbourne, Collingwood or Essendon, could potentially be a few landing spots. But he is, of course, going to be an expensive player, so which kind of club would be willing to pay around 600, 700k a year for him? But you'd think that a club would definitely take the punt on going with McStay, and potentially in different colours and a change of environment, he could potentially turn into a standout player for a new club. Around last week, we heard that Griffin Logue is putting contract extension talks on hold, and this potentially opens up a lot of doors for, again, Victorian clubs, as he is a Victorian, and he has certainly the past year or two really built his defensive craft with Fremantle. Freo do have an exceptional backline, and it is showing this year. Pearce, Hamling, Cox and Griffin Logue, and it's that good of their defence line. We've seen that Griffin Logue has not been even able to crack into the best 22 at times. So would this mean that Freo could offload a bit of the cap space by letting Griffin Logue go to Victoria? A massive, massive destination could possibly be the Western Bulldogs. They are really hungry for more key defenders, and I think this would be a perfect place for Griffin Logue. We all know that the Bulldogs do have a very unsustainable key back department, and it just lacks a lot of upside with Keith and Cordy sometimes running back through there, and Gardner, a few injury prone plays as well. And Griffin Logue, he's 24, he would just fit perfectly, I feel, in a doggy's jumper if he were to move. West Coast Eagles have definitely been in the news with trades and what they should do with their key kind of players. Some people have made lists of players they should keep, players they should leave, but I think a player that West Coast should really leave that possibly still has a bit of value is Elliot Yeo, of course, one of the Eagles' better players, who this year he has had a few injury problems, and of course he's just been out of form when he has returned into the side. Yeo is 28 years old, so he still has plenty of footy left in the tank, and this would be an ideal player for the Eagles to let go to free up cap space and to really kick off their rebuild. And if Yeo was to go, he could potentially go to a team like the Crows or Hawthorn, teams that really do need to build their midfield stock. Moving on to another Eagles player that West Coast could potentially let go that still has a bit of value is Jack Darling. With how the Eagles have gone this year, it's hard to pick who's really been a top tier player for the Eagles, and Jack Darling, 29 years old, still had somewhat of an okay season, kicking 8 goals from 8 games so far. Darling would be an ideal player just to join a club for a few years and try and punch home a few goals a season, would just add to a bit of firepower in a club's forward line. So if he were to head to Victoria, maybe like a Richmond, North Melbourne, Essendon or Collingwood could be a potential destination. Or if it's not Victoria, maybe a GWS Giants have really struggled to solidify a second key forward in this side. Could be another landing spot for Jack. Bobby Hill should be another name being reappeared in the trade news at the end of this season. Of course, last year he was wanting to request a trade to Victoria, but it was falling short. It was down the drain. So now he's spent another season at the Giants. And of course, there'd be a far few Victorian clubs that would certainly be interested in Bobby Hill. In my eyes, two perfect destinations for Bobby Hill if the trade was to occur could be Carlton and Collingwood. Collingwood do really struggle with their small forwards at the moment. They do have Ollie Henry and McCreery, Jack Ginnivan bobbing up, but they can always add more firepower to their forward line with a player like Bobby Hill. Same goes for Carlton. They do have Durden and 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐻 bobbing up this year, but then again, it would not hurt if Bobby Hill were be able to join the Blues and just add to their extremely promising list, really, Carlton. And for the final possible trade that could occur at the end of the season, we have Shaun Dux, a massive name. He has been in the news and, of course, a player who has a very high profile. Big Five from 2014 has spent his entire career with the Magpies, and he's turned 26 now this year, and you just really think of, has he been the player that Collingwood have wanted him to be? You'd think that there's a lot of players in his age category now who've been far better than Dux, and I think the most ideal thing for Dux is a change of environment. Those are really big factors for players. A change in environment can really re-kick a career or could really spark up a career. And Collingwood, I feel, certainly wouldn't mind giving up Dux. That would get a compensation pick of possibly a top 10 pick. And I think it would work for both parties. And where would Dux go? Could go to many different spots. He could go up to Sydney, maybe GWS would be a perfect spot, maybe up to the Gold Coast. But a big team that is being linked at the moment is St Kilda, and geez, he would be perfect in that St Kilda lineup. Adding to the firepower of Higgins and Membry and Max King would just be elite for St Kilda. So he's going to be possibly one of the biggest names in the whole trade period if he wants to leave the black and the white. So everyone, there were a few possible trades that could occur at the end of the 2022 AFL season. Hopefully you did enjoy the video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you wanted to enjoy the video. And also feel free to comment down below and tell me what you think. Let me know your thoughts, and also feel free to comment down below some of your potential trades that you think could occur. Anyways, fellas, that's the end of today's video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'll talk to you later. See you later, fellas.